Campbell as our keynote speaker today. He has 40 years of lobbying experience. He's been the executive director of the Dallas Regional Mobility Coalition, and he's a senior partner at Capital Insights, a role he has had for the last 13 years. Prior to that, he worked for the Associated Motor Carriers of Oklahoma and the New Car Dealers Association of Metropolitan Dallas as its CEO. During his tenure with the associations, he formed countless relationships with business leaders and political figures at the local, state, and federal levels. Along with legislative management, Mr. Campbell developed a firm grasp of media and public relations skills as he successfully represented the automobile industry as its regional and national spokesperson during his stint as CEO of the association. Since opening Capital Insights, Mr. Campbell has brought his many skills to represent a variety of clients and business interests, including major financial, transportation, and manufacturing interests. Today, he'll speak to us as engineers how to practice politics in tumultuous times. Please welcome Drew.
Thank you so much. To start with, I found out that you guys have been meeting for the past year in person. I've been in the past year. This is my first in-person presentation I've made in a year. So what I want everybody to do is stand up right now. Stand up and give yourself a round of applause, a standing ovation. Feel good about where we are, where we're going. Yes, we live in tumultuous times. Tumultuous times. I mean, is anybody really surprised Putin is a jerk? No. Are we surprised at what we've just been through with the pandemic for the last 2 years? Yes and no. Has it created tumultuous times? Yes. But we've always lived in tumultuous times. When I was a kid, when I think back to, and the reason I'm a senior partner is I'm old. When I was a kid, we had assassinations. We had cities on fire, literally on fire in this country. We had civil rights actions. We had all kinds of things going on. And as we ended the 60s, what happened? We were in the middle of the Vietnam War. It was the first time a war had been brought into our living rooms. Tumultuous, to say the least. But what does that mean for you guys? You know, when Nancy was nice enough to call me and she said, I want you to come and speak to my group. And I said, okay, who's your group? ASCE. And I said, hey, that sounds maybe exciting, kind of fun. And then I found out engineers, and I was like, uh-oh, engineers, how exciting can this be? I've got a degree in accounting, agricultural economics, and an MBA. So I understand how exciting engineers can be as being an accountant. But let me first and foremost talk a little bit about Capital Insights and why I put that card up there. I've been doing this since 1978, started in Oklahoma, and we've been through the ups and downs of the oil field. We've seen inflation, deflation, the collapse of the dollar, the collapse of the financial markets, but there's one thing that always, always, always is true. State government keeps moving. Every year, every 2 years here in Texas and every year in Oklahoma, the legislature meets. And what happens when they meet? They divide up money. They divide up money to people who show up and talk about the important things that are important to you guys, important engineers, the projects, all the different things that are going on. And I will move now to, let's see, what do I do? Just press about that. Can I do that? Will I do that? Basically, what I was going to do is talk about the Dallas Mobility Coalition. I'm the executive director of that. The Dallas Regional Mobility Coalition is a group of 5 counties and about 30 mayors who got together in 1986 and decided, hey, we aren't getting our fair share of dollars out of Austin. How do we move forward? How do we get our voice heard? And what we do is we meet with our legislators, every one of them in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We know all of them. And we talk to them about what's important for Dallas-Fort Worth, what's important for our funding. How do we make Dallas-Fort Worth a better city? How do we make the investments necessary going forward? Not today. How do we put in place things like the North Texas Toll Authority? When I first moved to Dallas in 1980, would it surprise some of you might know, it only went all the way to 635, which didn't even exist. Now it goes all the way to Windstar, best I can tell. But the point being is there was some thought in that. There was an investment made. We talked about the future. We talked about making investments, not for today, but for our children and for, guess what? Those 1,100 people who are moving to Texas every day. So we've got to be laying the foundation for that. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, you know, is this a conservative? Is it liberal? Is it whatever it is? No, it's common sense. And anybody who's not talking about making infrastructure investments, and I'm talking about water, transportation, the electric grid, those kinds of things in our educational system, then they're kidding you. They're not talking about the important things to us. And this is where there's 3 things I want to talk to you guys about today. And I want you to remember these. You get to hear a lot of people like me talk, and you probably go, well, that was a nice meal, nice lunch and all that. But no, this is important for you and your business. This isn't about politics. This is about your business. And you have to look at what goes on in Austin and Washington as your business. You have to have focus, you have to have involvement, and you have to stay involved. Those things are what make things happen. Okay, if we could move to the next one. Which one? Oh, the arrow. Oh, very good. Our region. What's going on in our region? Just in our 5 counties, and think about this. Dallas-Fort Worth's got right at 8 million people. In the 5 counties we represent, there's 3.9 million people in total population. 4 million people. It's a lot of people. When I first moved here, I don't think we had that many. Let's see, business expansion. North Texas ranks among the top 3 U.S. metro areas for business expansion. I don't have to tell you guys that. You know this. Businesses are coming here every day. They're moving here. Why are they moving here? We made the investment 20 years ago in our transportation system. The execs at Toyota will tell you when they left California, it took them 3 hours to get from their headquarters to the airport. Then they got on an airplane and it's 5 hours to New York or another 3.5, 4 hours to get to Dallas. Here in Dallas, Texas, they can get to DFW in 30 minutes, Love Field in 20, and then they're all over the United States. That's why people are moving here. But the investments were made before. They're made today. We're not going to do any of this stuff today. Let's see, which one have we got up here? Yeah, if you, I'm not good at this. See, I said I was old. Give me the Dallas roadways. Anyway, for that, the Dallas roadways and why it's so important, why it's so terribly important. 24 of the 100 most congested roadways are right here in Dallas, Texas. Right here. Why is that? What do you think? I don't know. Is it because we have a population density? Is it, you know, the number of people, the 8.5 million people that live here now? It's all of those things. It's all of those things. And the group that I represent, the Dallas Regional Mobility Coalition, we talk about all forms of mobility. We talk about highways, we talk about transit, and we talk about the new transportation system that everybody in this room should or does know about, broadband. It's how you get to school. It's how you see your doctor. It's how you order your groceries. I mean, who in here doesn't use Amazon? But what does all this mean? How does all this work? I know that we just recently saw that there was a massive spending bill cleared the Senate last week, $1.5 trillion. And it's going to help fund the infrastructure bill that they passed last year. And this is the hard part about what I do, is trying to explain to business people that, yeah, all these things happen. Yes, the infrastructure bill did pass. It hasn't been funded yet. Probably won't be funded till this summer. And once it is funded, what's going to happen? The transportation department is going to promulgate rules about how that money is going to be spent. So anything that's going on in Washington, it's not going to hit Texas for at least a year, maybe a year and a half. But the money is coming. And so we need to be prepared to spend it. All right, let's see. I can, there we go. Now, hey, it works. All right, these are major roadway recommendations. Look at that. And that's Dallas-Fort Worth. That includes Tarrant County as well. These are all of the roadway recommendations that have been made for the next 5 years. These are put together by your North Texas COG, Council of Government. This is what we do collectively. The 27 mayors, the 5 county commissioners, et cetera, make recommendations about how these roadways work and how we keep moving forward, and why Texas, even though we've grown as much as we have in Dallas-Fort Worth, we still have less congestion today than we did 20 years ago, which is hard to imagine with all the growth we've had. All right, here's the fun part. So I get here 1980. You've got 2.4 million people living in Dallas-Fort Worth. That's the whole place. That's everything. Today, we're right at 7.6 million. Now think about that. That's almost as many people as live in New York City. That's how big we are. We overtook Houston in size of metro areas. We're right on the heels of overtaking Chicago, metro areas. We don't have a port. We don't have a river. We're here because of our transportation systems that we built. And that's why we got to continue investing in them. Now, to give you an idea of the difference between, say, New York City and Dallas-Fort Worth, there's 24,000 people per square mile in New York City. Think about that, 24,000 per square mile. There's 689 in Dallas-Fort Worth. So how do you go about developing a transportation system? You know, everybody talks about how we need to urbanize, we need to have more mass transit. How do you build a mass transit system for 689 people per square mile? It's difficult. You're engineers, figure it out. Come on, you can do this for us. Well, see, now I broke it again. Where am I pressing the wrong button? Ah, there we go. Now my other favorite one, it's the Texas population. 14.7 million people. We got 30 million people living here now. Think about that. So in another 40 years, could we really have 60 million people living here? Oh yeah, at 1,100 people per day. Oh yeah, oh yeah. We'll be there. And what are we doing about it today? And just talking about how we're going to stay conservative, that doesn't cut it. You got to have real solutions. This is where you as engineers need to be organized, need to be together, need to know who your members. How many of you guys right here today, just, and I'm not trying to embarrass anybody, how many of you know who your state representative is? Very good. How many of you actually know him? How about your state senator? Okay, you need to know them. Now, when I say know them, what does that mean? That means you have to write them a check, you have to take them to dinner. No, they need to know who you are, you need to know who they are, so that when you have things that you want to talk about, you can talk to them. When they think about, hey, there's a project coming up, do I know an engineer? You know how many engineers there are in the legislature right now out of 180 members? Zero. They don't know what you do. They don't know how you do it. And it's not that they don't want to, but they will make uninformed decisions. Jim Klein sitting right here, and I have walked the halls down there in Austin and discovered over and over again, they don't know what you do. And they're going to make a vote, sometimes based on a friendship, sometimes based on false information, and sometimes just, oh, it's time to vote. Okay, I'm going to vote. And they don't know why. It's your job. It's your job to meet these people. It's not hard. They really are. These are people who they're there and they all say the same thing. I want to help. Well, let them. Give them something to talk about. All right, let's, total lane miles of highway in Texas, 683,533. That's more highway miles than all of Western Europe. The closest state to Texas is California, and they've got about 350,000 miles. I mean, this is big, big business. This is your business. This is our business. It's the bridges, it's the roads, it's the buildings that go next to them. It's all of those things. And we spend a lot of money here in Texas working on that. Now I'm throwing this out here only because, yeah, I know a lot about automobiles. I've worked for the automobile industry since 1980. You hear a lot today about, hey, you want to solve the energy crisis? Get an electric car. Okay, why not? Although 80% of the energy that is used to make electricity is fossil fuels, but that's a different subject. 22 million vehicles. If we started selling 100,000 electric vehicles a month, next month, we would replace those 22 million vehicles in 19.1 years. So do you really think that buying an electric car is solving the energy? No. Are electric cars coming? Yes. Does the technology work? Yes. But all I like to do is throw these kind of numbers and statistics out there to people and say, the reality is it ain't going to happen in my lifetime. It's going to happen in my grandkids' lifetime. I mean, even with autonomous vehicles, I can see my grandkids at some point looking at me and saying, they let you drive a car? And I look at them and say, and carry a gun too. But the reality is those things are all out there. They're all in the future. And those of you who are old enough like me, who used to look at the front page of Popular Mechanics every month, flying cars, and we're going to live like the Jetsons. And this was all going to happen in the 80s because the magazines came out in the 60s and 50s. But my point is, that's how big this is. Texas is big, the industry's big, and changing to electric cars is really not the way to do it. So I get to Texas, been in Oklahoma for 2 years. Our budget up there was $450 million back then. The state budget of Texas was $12 billion in 1980. It's $250 billion now. $250 billion. That's all money that gets divvied up, decided upon, talked about, spent, wasted, whatever you want to call it. But remember, that's your money. You guys have projects. You guys have needs. You guys need to be involved. And I know someone asked me, he said, well, what do you think about scorecards? And I said, scorecards for what? He said, well, you know, we take scorecard and see how our legislators, do they really vote for us or against us? And I said, scorecards are good for one thing, baseball, and that's it. Because you don't know why they're voting for or against certain bills. A lot of times they'll have throwaway bills, bills that aren't going to go to the governor's office, have no chance of passing, et cetera. It's about personal relationships, and scorecards only get you in trouble. They only get you in trouble, and they lose you friends. So how many of y'all know who these three guys are? I mean, probably recognize the guy on the left. You might recognize the guy in the middle. And then the guy on the right, he's just as powerful as the other two. He's the Speaker of the House. The guy's name's Dade Phelan. He comes from Beaumont, Texas. And he's very important to know because he runs the House. And he's an integral part of anything that you're going to get done. He's a real estate developer. He's a young guy. He's younger than me, so he's a young guy, but he's a really super nice guy. But he's somebody that you need to know as a part of the system. And there it is, the state capitol. If you haven't been in it, it's one of the prettiest buildings, prettiest state capitals in the United States. When it was first built, it was touted to be the 7th largest building in the world. All right, let's go back to the message of today. Focus. And what do I mean by focus? You have 3 things that you all collectively decide have got to be done in the legislature. You're going to go down and you're going to ask for them. You're going to ask these guys for help. All of your state senators, from Angela Paxton to whomever your state senator is, but you want their help, but you stay focused. Don't get lost in, you know, it's what I call the policy of the day. All of these cultural issues that have nothing to do with your business. And the first question I'd ask anybody is that all these cultural issues you hear about, do any of you do those in your business every day? And the answer is probably no. Then stay away from them. Don't talk about them. Stay focused, focused, focused. The next thing is get involved. And by getting involved, that means getting to know your state representatives, your state senators. Just get to know them. Make sure they know who you are and develop a relationship. And I'll tell you something that's funny about the politics, and it's why I love it so much. It's like football, just exactly like football. You know, one of our go-to guys, Amari Cooper, he's gone. We got to get a new go-to guy. Well, you know, it's like your state senator, Jane Nelson. She's gone. She retired. Now we got Tam Parker. How many people in this room know Tam Parker? There you go. It's replacement. And it's like I always laugh about. It's when you lose your friends, now you got an opportunity to go make new friends. But you get involved. And then, of course, you stay involved. You have to tend to it. You have to treat it like part of your business because it is that important. When you think about, I mean, it's one of those mind-boggling things that just sort of struck me. They talk about what's going on, and you very rightly talked about what's happening over in Eastern Europe right now. But Russia spends on their defense budget $70 billion a year. It's a lot of money. Texas spends $68 billion on education. You start thinking, oh, wait a second, what? Our budget's bigger than the country of Russia. Our GDP is bigger than the country of Russia. That's why it's important you get involved and you stay involved. Now, this is something that's near and dear to my heart. And has anybody got any questions? Everything's on the table. I'll answer anything. Trust me, if I don't know it, I'll make it up. I am a lobbyist. This is something that's very near and dear to my heart, and it has to do with Stop the Streak. It has to do with safety. It has to do with the number of people who die every year on our freeways. We had done such a great job of getting that number to go down. During the pandemic, it went back up. There's many theories as to how and why it did that. Basically, it's because people are driving so fast. I think people are just tired of being cooped up. Another theory is that hell, all the DPS is on the border, so nobody's really watching the highways. But it's something that I leave you with is you know, buckle up, drive a little bit slower, and remember, the other person in that car, they're crazy. And if you drive like that, then you'll stay safe, and you'll keep your family safe. And these are needless deaths. We're fast approaching about 40,000 deaths a year now. We've gotten it down to about 34,000. And of course, look, we got airbags in the cars, we got airbags in the doors, we got all those things. And we just need to really be mindful. And it's something that the Dallas Regional Mobility Coalition is actively working on and talking about is car safety, because these are, as I said, they're needless deaths. It really, it's heartbreaking. Okay, now that right there is a self-indulgence. That is a 911 Carrera T. It has 504 horsepower. It goes from 0 to 60 in about 3.2 seconds. And it is the most fun car I've ever driven in my life. I have not made it to the point to where I own one, but that's my goal. I have a bucket list, and that's it right there. But again, I thank you all so much for having me today. And I hope I haven't taken up too much time. And I hope you remember, just remember, focus, get involved, stay involved. It's your money. It really is. I mean, everybody says, they say, what do you do as a lobbyist? And I said, I argue about other people's money. You know, and my wife will say, since I started in 1978, she says, you know, what does your husband do? And she'll say, nothing. He loves what he does, and I do. It is. It's a lot of fun. One little side note to talk about what effect you can have for your business. How many of y'all bought a new car and paid the documentary fee? You even know what it is? Documentary fee is a fee that you pay to the dealer. Why do you pay it to the dealer? Because I wrote the law that says so. It's about 150 bucks. Some places it's 200 bucks. But those are the kinds of things that happen in the legislature that, you know, if you know what you're doing, you can get done, and they're fun. That's what makes it fun. And the fact you get to know a lot of people, and the fact I get to come and meet people like you. You guys are the difference makers. You're the engineers, you're the dreamers, you're the ones who actually make all of the noise in Austin turn into things. You're the reason 1,100 people a day are moving here. It's the quality of life you've built. And I'll leave you with this. Focus, get involved, stay involved, and let's keep Texas the greatest state in the nation. Thank you so much. And anybody have a question? Yes, sir.
Hold on one second. We have people who's joining us virtually. And if you can speak into the microphone, I'll come to you with all these questions.
For 4 years, I was involved in organized politics, precinct chairman all the way to state convention delegate.
Good for
Went
you.
through the legislature. essentially all of them that I ran into, I thoroughly despised. Do you have any clue as to how I might learn to hold my nose and deal with such people?
Well, I started a lot of times when I start these talks about politics, I always say that it is a stinky, rotten business. I've had calls at midnight. I've had my life threatened. I've had my wife yelled at. And that was when I was commissioner of the Pee Wee Football Association out in mid-cities. And what I would suggest to you is this, is all of the people that I've ever run into in public office, and some, they're from all walks of life, but about 99% of them are there and they have a good heart. They want to do the right, quote unquote, do the right thing. They're there for public service. Are their egos a little bigger than some? Yeah, because they're seeking adulation. They're seeking a public office, but I have found them to be very gracious, very good people. And I've enjoyed working with them, but that doesn't mean I haven't run into some stinkers. I will tell you, I won't tell you the stories, but I did spend a lot of time with Charlie Wilson. I don't know if you remember that name, but so there's some fun stories that you hear and learn, and things have changed quite a bit. I'll tell you what, this thing, this is a curse and a blessing and everything else. I mean, back when I first got started, everything had to be typed on a piece of paper. Now I can get you a 1,500-page bill and I can get it in your inbox this afternoon and then say, what amendments do you want? Because we got to have it by tomorrow. Well, in 1980, if it was a 1,500-page bill, it didn't happen that way. And there might be amendments that get put on it that nobody knows about. But anyway, anybody else? But thank you for your service.
Just to make you aware, ASCE has a program called our Legislative DriveIn at section level. That's our state organization. And the branch here is heavily involved in that. Many of these folks have been to Austin, speaking to senators and representatives. We don't often get to relate directly to the reps. We deal with their staff, although I've heard, I haven't been involved recently, but I've heard anecdotes that the reps are getting more involved directly with us, hearing about our infrastructure report card and our issues in making sure that that Texas does stay the best state in the union for infrastructure.
Well, one of the things, and I'm not your lobbyist, but one of the things I always tell people about going to Austin is if you're there in January, you're too late, because they're right now, they're deciding what's going to happen next spring. Now, things happen. When was the last time you heard about the 130 car pileup and the 11 deaths that occurred over here on Northeast Tarrant Expressway? I mean, that was the news until Winter Storm Uri hit. When did we start naming winter storms? That was lost on me. But the winter storm hit, and you can't predict these things. Those are the lightning bolts that happen in life, that they can overtake a legislature. But if you're down there hat in hand in January, February of an odd numbered year, you're too late. You got to be in front of these guys now. Anybody else? And no, the Cowboys are not going to be better off without Amari Cooper. That's just my prediction. But anyway, but thank you all very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Let me just squeeze right in. There's a reason you're looking at my face on a piece of paper on the table there. Just very quick elevator speech of just look around the room, how many people we have here for our branch meetings, which we are so appreciative of. Membership is our key goal, not just for the Dallas branch, but for the Texas section. And I serve as the Texas section membership chair. So I'm always looking for new ideas and a way to get you information so you can go back to your colleagues. What's on that sheet of paper and what's been rotating on the slides is a fun little competition that's on the national scale. Put in your colleagues' information, hopefully with their permission, their email address on the link when you use that QR code or the website, and we'll reach out to them and show them the benefits of ASCE, because we want to grow membership. That's how we're able to bring these great presentations to your attention and just grow as a branch and as a section. So that's just one piece of information. I'll be doing this maybe every other meeting. Just as a reminder, membership is the lifeblood of our organization, and we thank you so much for being a member and being with us.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell, for talking to us today. As a token of appreciation, we have this Texas Centennial book. It has 100 years of projects. And I don't know what politicians were involved with them. You probably know.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you again, Mr. Campbell, for the wonderful presentation. I have just a few closing remarks. Next month is Earth Month, and this meeting will also be led by our younger member chair, because it's Younger Member Month as well. So surprise to Carlos, he hadn't been made aware yet. So we hadn't had the opportunity to do that in the last couple of years. So good times. Let's see, our April keynote topic will be the PGA facility in Frisco, and will be presented by Ben Brazina, the Assistant City Manager for the City of Frisco. We will also have several technical sessions. TNDI will host a technical session on accelerated bridge construction. The Construction Institute will host a technical session on DFW Airport prefabricated concourse. And we'll have a younger member bridge session. Also, please join Blake Aldridge from the Upper Trinity Regional Water District in the chapel room behind me, where he will be presenting Conserving Land, Protecting Water in North Texas. You may also be interested in the younger member bridge group presented in the grooms room, which are the double doors also behind me to your right. And with that, I will now adjourn this meeting. Thank you all for attending.